Good morning, dear students. Today, I'm going to talk about two important topics. First, hepatocellular carcinoma, which belongs to the surgical conditions of the liver. Then I'll move on to the intestinal surgical conditions from today. Okay, there are different, surgical conditions of the small intestine we are going to talk. Uh, Mainly, we focus on intestinal obstruction, but we will also talk about Michel's diverticulum, okay, talk about intussusception, talk about duodenal atresia, and things like that. Okay, so let's start. So hepatocellular carcinoma is also known as hepatoma, and this is the most common primary malignancy of the liver. Primary malignancy of the liver. Remember, each of the words are important here because it is not the commonest malignancy of the liver. Okay, the commonest malignancy of the liver is what? Anybody? What is the most common malignancy of the liver? Yes.
Sir, metastatic tumor.
Excellent. Excellent. Metastatic tumor. Very good. So that is the commonest malignancy of the liver. You can also call it secondaries are the most common. But look at the question very carefully. Okay, sometimes you easily make mistake here. The most common primary malignancy of the tumor is hepatocellular carcinoma. Now see there. Hepatocellular carcinoma is uncommon in the United States and the Western world, but more common in Asian country, and it arises from liver cell or hepatocyte. Now, whichever Asian country you take data from, like Japan, China, okay, even South Asian countries, we have increased cases of hepatocellular carcinoma because of different risk factors. We are going to talk about that. When it arises from biliary epithelial cell, we call it intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. We talked about that already. Cholangiocarcinoma is the term we use for the cancer which arises from biliary epithelial cell. And if the cancer arises from hepatocyte, we call it hepatocellular carcinoma or hepatoma. In neonate, hepatoblastoma, okay, is the common, and it resembles fetal liver. Okay, so this blastoma term is given for the immature type of cells, and fetal, malignancy or fetal tumors are named as blastoma. There are so many examples like that, like neuroblastoma, nephroblastoma, retinoblastoma, isn't it? Rhabdomyosarcoma. Okay, this is also a similar type of tumors, though blastoma term is not there. So these are the childhood tumors. Now, the most important part of today's class is etiology and clinical features. So see there. What are the etiologies of hepatocellular carcinoma? Hepatitis B virus is one of the most important cause. Hepatitis B virus and hepatitis C virus as well. Almost 80% of the cases of hepatocellular carcinoma are due to underlying chronic hepatitis B and hepatitis C. Now, let me elaborate a little bit on this. There are different types of hepatitis viruses we have, right from hepatitis A, B, C, D, and E. And these days, hepatitis G virus is also described. So, among them, hepatitis B, C, and D, okay, cause chronic liver disease. B, C, and D. D is called defective virus. It always, infects along with B. So you can simply say B and C cause the chronic liver infection. They remain there. They may lead to cirrhosis of the liver, and later on, that cirrhosis of liver may develop into hepatocellular carcinoma. In adult, okay, in adult, 10% of the cases would develop into chronic liver disease whenever they get hepatitis B infection. So, whenever chronic liver disease is there, it can complicate into hepatocellular carcinoma later on. But in pediatric age group, at the time of birth, if a baby gets hepatitis B from the mother, there is 90% chance of development of chronicity. 10% versus 90%. This is a huge difference in the percentage. Now, what is the lesson to be learned here? we can prevent the development of hepatitis B in the baby, okay, if we give hepatitis B immunoglobulin and hepatitis B vaccine right at the time of birth, within 12 hours preferably. If you want to save the baby from getting, hepatocellular carcinoma later on, that has to be done. This is very important knowledge. Let's move further. What are the other causes? Cirrhosis of the liver. It is a definite pre-malignant condition, and a palpable hard liver in a cirrhotic patient suggests development of hepatocellular carcinoma. Now, there are so many causes of cirrhosis. So many. Cirrhosis is a condition of the liver. It is a terminal stage in the disease of liver. And after that, liver is not going to come back to the normal stage. That is cirrhosis. This is a nodular condition of the liver. There is extensive fibrosis, and there is, patches or lobules of regenerative parenchyma as well. Now, what happens? There are so many causes. Alcohol, even hepatitis B and hepatitis C viruses, okay, Wilson disease, alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, hemochromatosis, and sometimes even idiopathic. All of these ultimately can develop hepatocellular carcinoma. Aflatoxin, okay, this aflatoxin is a type of toxin which is produced by fungus, and this fungus commonly found in the old butter and bread. That's why we should not consume this type of food. Even in peanuts, okay, old type of groundnut or peanut, these aflatoxins are found, and they are very, very powerful hepatotoxin. Okay? They are the derivative of fungus. Another one is the racial difference. This hepatocellular carcinoma is 4 times more common in Asian population, okay, and 2 times in Hispanics, and they are less common in Caucasians. So we don't care about other, but in Asian population it is very common. And if you want to confirm this, just visit any of the oncology hospital or oncology center, and you realize there are lots of cases of hepatocellular carcinoma everywhere in Asian country. Oral contraceptive pill in case of female, first of all, it causes adenoma. This is hepatic adenoma. This is a benign tumor, and some of them may turn into hepatocellular carcinoma, but this is rare, but nevertheless it has been reported. Please mute yourself. Now, before I go to the other causes, let's quickly look at this picture here. This is a case of chronic hepatitis, okay, probably caused by hepatitis B virus and hepatitis C. Now, it will develop into cirrhosis of the liver. Note this nodular appearance and a little bit shrunken type of liver, okay. And in any area of the cirrhotic liver, hepatocellular carcinoma may develop. Okay? Hepatocellular carcinoma may develop in that. So this is the natural history of the disease. Now, what are the other risk factors now? See this. Heavy alcohol consumption, cigarette smoking, diabetes, hemochromatosis are the other factors responsible for hepatocellular carcinoma, and Wilson disease is rarely associated with increased risk of hepatocellular carcinoma. Now, some of them may not be directly responsible. There may be some indirect association, okay, like diabetes. We have not studied, diabetes is causing cancer directly, but there are some indirect relations. Yesterday also, you have talked about endometrial carcinoma, and that has also some connection with diabetes, hypertension as well. Probably obesity is the linking process there. Okay. Now, some other are hereditary tyrosinemia. Hereditary tyrosinemia. Now, see there? It's a metabolic disorder characterized by a deficiency of enzyme fumarate acetoacetate, which results in accumulation of toxic tyrosine metabolite, and they can progress to hepatocellular carcinoma. You don't need to remember all of these. This is a very rare condition. rare condition, just the term would be enough. And other rare conditions are type 1 glycogen storage disease, which is known as von Gierke disease, familial polyposis coli syndrome, alpha 1 antitrypsin deficiency, and even Budd-Chiari syndrome. This Budd-Chiari syndrome and alpha 1 antitrypsin deficiency can lead to cirrhosis of the liver, and then it can complicate into hepatocellular carcinoma. Now, let me summarize. You have come across so many important etiology. All of these are not important for you to remember from the exam point of view. So never forget cirrhosis as such as the risk factor or pre-malignant condition. Then hepatitis B and hepatitis C viral infection, absolutely common in Asia. Okay. Then remember alcohol itself or after causing cirrhosis. Okay. Then some other metabolic conditions. Let's move on. Now, after doing these clinical etiology, let's talk about the clinical features of hepatocellular carcinoma. What is the common age group? The highest incidence is found after 50 years of age. It is rarely seen in children also, but in children we often see hepatoblastoma. So in relatively older age, the cancer is seen. Now, one point I like to highlight here, okay, if a baby gets hepatitis B infection at the time of birth from vertical transmission from the mother, okay, now it will take around 8 to 10 years for the development of cirrhosis of the liver from that hepatitis B infection. So quite early in life, that child may develop hepatocellular carcinoma. Okay, so it is sometimes seen in children also. Male alcoholics are commonly affected. That is, according to the sex. And another important point is a slow growing mass is there in the right hypochondrium. Okay, it is the enlarged liver with an irregular surface and hard inconsistency. This is a feature of malignancy. This enlarged liver with irregular surface, okay, this irregular surface is an important feature of cirrhosis of the liver. But enlargement of the liver is not a feature of cirrhosis. In cirrhosis, there is shrinkage of the liver. Now, why? Why cirrhosis liver is shrunken? Yes, why?
So stellate cell undergo there is highly fibrosis due to chronic inflammation, and so that's why it lead to the shrinkage of the liver.
Fibrosis scarring, so that is the main cause of it.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. This is all because of fibrosis. Cirrhosis is all about fibrosis. There are fibrotic band present inside the liver. Those fibrotic band will totally distort the architecture of the liver. The liver will become smaller in size than before. But if that liver is enlarging again, then this is highly suspicious of hepatocellular carcinoma. It can be a rapidly growing neoplasm, highly vascular, and clinically palpable as a soft to firm pulsatile mass with or without a bruit. Now, these highlighted points are important. This may be a pulsatile mass because of high vascularity, and we can hear a bruit. Bruit means it is an audible type of murmur, but that murmur is coming here from the artery. Okay, it is not coming from the valve of the heart. Okay, a murmur, the typical murmur we hear is from the valve of the heart. But if a murmur like sound is heard from any stenosis or narrowing of the artery, or if the increased blood flow is there inside that artery, okay, high blood flow but relatively narrowing lumen of the artery, then also bruit can be heard. Rapid development of anorexia, asthenia, anemia, and loss of weight may be there. So anorexia is loss of appetite, very common in any type of malignancy. Asthenia is weakness. It's a common term for weakness, severe weakness. Anemia, okay, anemia of chronic disease or in any cancer, anemia may be there. And loss of weight, severe loss of weight, okay, significant loss of weight. That is a good term. 10% weight loss in 6-month period is called significant weight loss, but 6 months is a long time for hepatocellular carcinoma. So it can lead to rapid weight loss in very short duration. Jaundice is not common unless the tumor arises in a cirrhotic liver in hepatocellular failure, because that mass should have compressed significant biliary ductal structure, then only jaundice will be there. Okay, or if the malignancy has arisen from the cirrhotic liver, remember cirrhotic liver is a destroyed liver already, so jaundice may be there as a result of that. There may be features of worsening portal hypertension, especially in case of cirrhosis of the liver. The features of portal hypertension are further aggravated. What are the features of portal hypertension? Yes.
Sir, ascites, and there is bleeding in the GIT tract due to invasion of the vessels.
Let's say the black Terry stool, we have the black Terry stool. Apart from that, sir, as a said, sir, we've got ascites as well.
Okay, now good.
Medusa.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Hepatitis medusa is esophageal viruses.
Varices, sir.
Yes, sir.
Very good. So some of the points are already coming. Excellent. So there are so many clinical features of portal hypertension. Number one is splenomegaly. Without splenomegaly, I do not think of portal hypertension. Then some of the collaterals will be seen there, like caput medusa around the umbilical area, esophageal varices in the lower end of the esophagus, rectal varices, okay, in the rectum or upper part of the anal canal. These are three common one. Okay. Apart from them, there is ascites, very common feature in portal hypertension, ascites. Then there may be features of hepatic encephalopathy as well. The patient may be having jaundice. The patient may be having other features of hepatocellular failure. So all of these may be worsened after hepatocellular carcinoma develops in cirrhosis. There may be low-grade pyrexia, and it is due to tumor necrosis, but this is not very important one, and this is a very non-specific feature. Liver, being an important organ of metabolism, hypoglycemia is found in around 10% of the patient. Now, what is the role of liver regarding glucose metabolism? A very important question asked to the student if this type of discussion comes there. What liver is doing regarding glucose metabolism? Yes.
Glyconeogenesis, sir.
Sir, the liver supplies glucose by turning the glycogen into glucose. It is known as the glycogenolysis mainly.
Okay, good.
Also store the glycogen, sir, and
good.
When there is need
for also gluconeogenesis as well, sir, in stress condition as well.
Good. So see there. Okay. So all of you, please listen here. I'm going to say a few things about this. Now, glucose metabolism, okay, liver has got a very, very important role to play. After we eat a good carbohydrate meal, okay, we have a lot of glucose in our blood. That glucose will turn into glycogen in the liver. This is called glycogenesis. Okay, that is done in the liver. Means glucose is stored in the form of glycogen in the liver. Now, when we are fasting or when we do not eat anything, that glycogen is again converted back into the glucose by liver. That is known as glycogenolysis. Glycogenolysis, breakdown of glycogen. Then again we get the glucose. And the third one, the formation of new glucose from other sources, that is known as gluconeogenesis, is also done by liver. Now, you got the clear idea here. If liver is damaged, there is a chance of hypoglycemia. The storage form of the glucose would be less. There is no place to store the glucose first. And when we need it, we do not get glucose from the glycogen. And even the gluconeogenesis would be a problem. So all of these can lead to hypoglycemia. Now, ascites, we already talked about, is an important feature of hepatocellular carcinoma. This ascites may be already there from cirrhosis of the liver or portal hypertension, or it may be a new ascites because of infiltration of the peritoneum by malignant cell. infiltration of peritoneum by the malignant cell. That may be the cause of ascites if the prior ascites is not there. Okay, this is an important point. The triad of abdominal pain, weight loss, and abdominal mass is the most common clinical presentation of hepatocellular carcinoma. See this, abdominal pain in the liver because of the big mass, sometimes there may be pain in the liver, weight loss, and abdominal mass during the palpation. If three of these combine together, and if we have some risk factors from our history taking, then we suspect hepatocellular carcinoma when we confirm it by investigation. Now, how the hepatoma or hepatocellular carcinoma is spread? Now, this is a very, common knowledge to the student now, because we have discussed this so many times before. Direct infiltration, lymphatic spread, hematogenous or blood spread, and spread through peritoneal cavity. Okay, spread through peritoneal cavity. So you can call this in your own word as well. So these are the main concept. So direct infiltration of the neighboring structures such as diaphragm results in hiccup due to irritation of the phrenic nerve. Diaphragm is right there above the liver. So there is infiltration of the diaphragm, and this can lead to intractable hiccup. Okay, if we irritate the diaphragm, irritate the phrenic nerve, hiccups will result. Lymphatic spread can occur at the hilum of the liver first. Hilum of the liver is called porta hepatis, and we explained this earlier. There are lymph nodes in the porta hepatis. Now remember, if these lymph nodes are enlarged, they can press, or give pressure to the bile duct, and that can itself lead to obstructive jaundice. So a patient of hepatocellular carcinoma can develop jaundice because of this mechanism also. Later, some other lymph nodes are also involved, like mediastinal lymph node and Virchow node. This Virchow node is left supraclavicular lymph node. This is a very important MCQ question for you in the exam. This Virchow node is not only enlarged here, but in other GI malignancy also, like carcinoma of the stomach and pancreatic cancer. Okay, these are the common ones. Blood spread is the third way of spread. It may cause massive malignant pleural effusion by dislodgement of the tumor emboli into the inferior vena cava because of spread through the hepatic vein, and vertebral involvement follows very soon. Means first it will go to the hepatic vein, okay, then inferior vena cava, and through that, okay, it can spread to other parts of the body. Now, peritoneal cavity is the another one. So it may occur because of rupture. Okay, that's why it is written as hemoperitoneum here. But you can simply write it peritoneal cavity is another, way of spread of hepatoma. Now, what are the common investigation you like to do to confirm your diagnosis? First is always the simple one, complete blood count or CBC. Okay, if we do that, hemoglobin is usually low because the patient is usually anemic patient. Second is a liver function test, LFT. Now, LFT is abnormal in most of the cases here because the risk factor is cirrhosis of the liver. The risk factor is chronic liver disease. Okay, so it may show hepatocellular failure in the form of high bilirubin. See this? High bilirubin, low albumin, and high globulin level. And if you analyze the liver enzyme, they may also be high. Means liver function test is abnormal. Just remember that. Chest X-ray. So pulmonary metastasis. Now, this is known as cannonball metastasis. This is secondaries in the lung. Cannonball because of the typical appearance. Abdominal ultrasound is a very, very important investigation here. If we do that, it will show diffuse distortion of hepatic parenchyma by the malignancy and there is a well circumscribed hyperechogenic mass in the ultrasound, which suggests hepatocellular carcinoma. This is ultrasound term, hyperechogenic, hypoechogenic. Okay, so it is a well circumscribed, means good margins are seen, and a hyperechogenic mass. There may be tumor thrombi in portal vein, hepatic vein, or even inferior vena cava. Tumor thrombi means the tumor cells, okay, are lodging there, and they are progressing slowly towards the right atrium. Another important test is contrast enhanced CT scan of the abdomen. This is very important, investigation in case of malignancy. We do all these tests, but CT scan is absolutely important before we plan the management or before we do the staging. Now, from the exam point of view, this question is important for you. That is alpha fetoprotein. Alpha fetoprotein is considered as a tumor marker in case of hepatocellular carcinoma. There is increased level of alpha fetoprotein. Probably they are produced by the tumor cell themselves. But normally, it is a fetal antigen which disappears after birth. Means it is present in the fetal life, but after the birth of the baby, within few months, this alpha fetoprotein will disappear. Okay, values above 20 nanogram per ml, 20 nanogram per ml are suggestive of hepatoma. Don't need to remember the value. You just say higher values are suggestive of hepatoma with other clinical features. We never do this alone. We already have important risk factor history there. We have already examined the patient, and we have already done some other investigation. So along with this, if alpha fetoprotein is also high, then this is a sure shot case of hepatocellular carcinoma. Levels above 400 nanogram per ml in a cirrhotic patient with a hypervascular mass larger than 2 centimeters in diameter is almost diagnostic. See there, this is a cirrhotic case. There is high level of alpha fetoprotein. There is a hypervascular mass in the liver, and the diameter is more than 2 centimeters. So many different points are there for the support of the diagnosis. And in the clinical practice, we always make diagnosis like this, not only one point. We pick a lot of evidences, and that's what medical students should learn. And that's what we are learning in our class. Though this is the theoretical class, but always study like this. How to make a diagnosis all the time. Any topic which you are studying, try to think like that. How to reach to the diagnosis, and then only the management. And for the diagnosis, always history taking, physical examination, followed by investigation. What the student think? They think only investigation will give them the diagnosis. So when they go to hospital, do you know what they do? They pick the investigation report first. They even don't see the patient. They don't ask any question. They don't touch the patient at all, but directly look at the investigation report. That is a very wrong approach. I will not look at the investigation in the beginning. Otherwise, I will be biased. I will ask certain questions first. I will try to find out which is the diagnosis first, then only move on to the other thing. Let's move on. Now, finally, what is the treatment of hepatocellular carcinoma? See there. Now, resection is the best possible treatment for hepatocellular carcinoma. Means surgery. Resection is surgery. Rest of the liver will be enough to maintain life, provided the remaining liver is healthy or non-cirrhotic. Now, liver is an amazing type of organ. It can regenerate itself. That is a very, very important point regarding liver. Means if we keep some healthy part of the liver behind, and if we resect the abnormal part of the liver, the whole liver can be formed from that healthy leftover part. Functional liver remnant should be more than 20% of the standardized total liver volume after resection. Now, you cannot remove whole liver. Okay, if you remove, then you have to do transplantation. But if we sacrifice around 70% or 75% of the liver also, then liver can regenerate back. So this is an amazing fact here. But that left over liver should be healthy and non-cirrhotic. The remnant liver should have vascular inflow, venous outflow, and biliary drainage. So this should be maintained. Otherwise, that remaining liver would also be damaged. Now, another part of the treatment process are systemic chemotherapy and transcatheter arterial embolization. Let's talk about that now. So systemic chemotherapy using intravenous doxorubicin has been tried with some success in the postoperative period, and sometimes even 5-fluorouracil can be given through the intra-arterial route. This is 5-fluorouracil, a type of chemotherapeutic agent, and doxorubicin, you already know, this is anti-cancer drug. Now, another way is transcatheter arterial embolization. Now, and another is transarterial chemoembolization. Okay, so TAE is transcatheter arterial embolization. TAC is transarterial chemoembolization. So this is done by introducing a gel foam into the branches of hepatic artery, which produce some amount of tumor necrosis, and this will destroy the tumor. So this is the belief. If this arterial embolization is combined with some therapeutic drug or chemotherapeutic agent like doxorubicin, it will be even more helpful for the patient. It will even be better type of therapy. This method is followed only as a palliative procedure though, okay, because if we reach this type of therapy, then we already know patient has only few months to live, means the disease is already widespread. Okay, and one more thing, this is one of the cancer which has very poor prognosis, So with this, let me come